8 rappers who grew up in the suburbs. Lots of rap artists tie their names to the streets in order to establish credibility. Indeed, image is everything in hip-hop, and these days making music is not enough. You have to build an image, a brand which will tie your product to your likeness. This is why so many rappers represent the streets which they came from. But there are plenty of rappers who did not live the gritty street life that they might have you think. Here are 8 rappers who grew up in the suburbs. While some of these are to be expected, some of them may completely surprise you. Before we start the video, make sure you click that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Number 8. Tyga. Tyga's upbringing has been the subject of much debate, and there are conflicting accounts of what he actually experienced growing up. Tyga claims Compton, California as his hometown, claiming that he grew up there until he was around 11 or 12 years old, before moving to the adjacent town of Gardena. On the other hand, there exists a video from a reality TV show of Tyga claiming that he actually grew up in the iconic and affluent San Fernando Valley, with his mom driving Range Rovers and living a peaceful life.
Yo, what it is, MTV, it's your boy Tyga, aka one of the greatest. Tyga, I got this name when I was young. My mom used to say I looked like Tiger Woods, so I just stuck with that. Grew up, not too tough, parents got a Range Rover, CL600, doing it big, not too much hard, but I'm still street.
Once the video surfaced, many called his previous Compton ties into question, while many speculated that his remarks in the show were either scripted or meant as a joke. In any case, Tyga tweeted about it in a cryptic message that didn't really clear anything up, and most of the information coming from his camp insisting that he was raised in Compton. It seemed that we'll never know for sure where exactly Tyga was brought up, as these questions still linger today. Number 7. Pusha T. You might think that given his propensity for bars about being a drug lord, that Pusha T represents the hood in his lyrics. However, Pusha T couldn't have been more far removed from the projects. Him and his brother No Malice grew up in a relatively middle-class area of Virginia Beach, and it wasn't until their friends from the rougher parts of the city began getting into the drug game that these two brothers followed suit.
That's the house we grew up in right here.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah.
It all began in this middle-class neighborhood in Virginia Beach, where they had a good childhood. Loving mom and dad, nice pool out back. But a couple neighborhoods over, friends were proving there was real money to be made.
Enticed by fast cars and candy paint jobs, these two brothers began their journey through selling drugs to hip-hop superstardom as the duo Clips. While their parents would ultimately find out about their illegal dealings and kick them out of the house, the two were already on a path to rap fame. It all came crashing down in an instant though. By the time the two had achieved worldwide success, many of their associates, managers, friends, and confidants got locked up for their roles in drug dealing going down in Virginia Beach. Pusha and No Malice were lucky to not be indicted themselves, and these events led No Malice to abandoning rap entirely and dedicating himself to the Lord, becoming a preacher in his hometown. Pusha T has gone on to be one of the most prolific rappers in the game today, along with being the president of Kanye West's Good Music label. All in all, it was a pretty weird trajectory for the sons of a stable household in a good neighborhood. But hey, all's well that ends well, right? Number 6. J. Cole. J. Cole was able to turn his come up through the suburbs into a metaphor for his success on his acclaimed debut album, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. The title is an homage to his childhood home in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and represents a better life for himself and his family. Prior to living there, J. Cole and his mother and brother were living in a trailer park on the other side of town, so the childhood home came to have a symbolic meaning for him. J. Cole is another rapper who gets constant criticism for being too soft, and in some ways, his childhood and upbringing do reflect that. His good grades in high school, his childhood career as a violinist, and so on. But the reality is, where you're from and how you're raised really don't have any influence on whether you can make good music or not. We should all be so lucky as to have good upbringings in comfortable environments. Number 5. Travis Scott. Travis Scott doesn't claim to be from the hood, and he wouldn't want you thinking that. The Houston rapper/producer grew up in the suburb of Missouri City, Texas, which is a relatively middle-class area, with his mother working for Apple and his father owning a business.
Tell us the at least one version of the Travis Scott story.
I just grew up in Houston, Texas, like my whole life, Missouri City. And then I left to do this rapper shit.
He also went to private school for most of his upbringing. Having said that, he's seen a fair share of urban street life. He stayed with and was raised by his grandmother until he was 6 years old, and his grandmother was living in a more poverty-stricken area of Houston, known as South Park. It was there that Scott saw the struggles of the poor, including addiction, hunger, and homelessness. It was this exposure that compelled Travis Scott to get out there and make a better life for himself. Things became easier when he moved to the suburbs with his parents, and it was there that his music career began to take off on the arc that led to the Travis Scott we all know and love today. Number 4. Drake.
Enough about the car. Let's go inside.
Adding to his much maligned status as a soft rapper, Drake was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, in a mixed family. While he lived on the more working-class West End until he was in the 6th grade, he then moved to the more affluent neighborhood known as Forest Hill in 2000. It was there that his artistic skills would blossom, first acting in drama performances in high school. While it seems easy to pick on Drake for moving here, he insists that it was not as it appeared. His childhood in the Forest Hills home consisted of him living in the basement with his mother living on the first floor, while another family rented out the second floor.
This is the living room, and it's nice and elegant, and I kind of leave this alone. It's too much for me. This is our dining room, and here's my mother making notes as usual on probably some...
Transposing my to-do list.
Yeah, exactly. Through here, this is our wonderful fridge with stock because, you know, there were people over today, so we had to get some food. Now we're gonna check out my space. This is my space, this is where I live. And through here, this is my living room. I like a chilling vibe, that's my favorite thing about this basement. I made this table.
Going to school with the richest and most well-to-do kids in Toronto led to Drake feeling isolated and was like an outcast. And he would then transfer to a school called Vaughan Road, in a lower socioeconomic bracket. You can't help but feel for the guy. In a culture so obsessed with rough upbringings and underdog stories, Drake's doesn't appear to fit the bill. But that didn't stop him from being one of rap's biggest stars. Having said that, what's it matter if you enjoy his music anyway? Number 3. Lil Yachty. Lil Yachty blew up with a series of mixtapes and albums that took melodic hooks and auto-tune crooning to a whole new level. But before he was Lil Yachty, he was Miles McCollum, growing up in relative comfort in the town of Mableton, Georgia. Not too much is known about his childhood outside of the working-class upbringing he came up with. However, this didn't keep Lil Yachty from getting into trouble. He ended up with a criminal record for running credit card scams out of a mall in Palm Beach, Florida, when he was 18. That's a pretty goofy way to get in trouble if you ask me, but hey, secure that bag, Lil Yachty. In any case, the days of middle-class Georgia and credit card scams are well behind him now. Number 2. Chance the Rapper. Perhaps the prime example of middle-class rap, Chancellor Bennett famously grew up in West Chatham, in a middle-class neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. His parents both worked in government, and his father was even the aide to then-Senator Barack Obama, whom Chance met several times during his youth. This almost culminated in moving to Washington, D.C. for his father, to help with Obama's presidential campaign, although this apparently fell through. In any case, Chance utilized the public services offered by his local library to help cultivate his musical passion. First breaking through with the mixtape 10 Day. Born into a family of government employees, Chance has retained a political mindset, working to help raise Chicago children out of poverty and help his hometown in any way he can. Number 1. Tyler the Creator. Tyler Okonma, better known as Tyler the Creator, turned heads with his blissfully violent and provocative lyricism as the leader of Odd Future at the turn of the decade. But for all his outlandish persona and spastic energy, he enjoyed a pretty quiet life in the suburbs of Los Angeles as his upbringing. Throughout his childhood, he spent time between Ladera Heights and Hawthorne, and he was into skateboarding and fashion. He also spent some time in the suburbs of Sacramento, up in Northern California, before returning to Los Angeles. While there, he worked on all sorts of random jobs, from FedEx to Starbucks barista. All this is to say that there is no barrier, be it money or upbringing, that can prevent someone from being a great hip-hop artist. That's the beautiful thing about hip-hop. As long as you're true to yourself, the rest will follow. There's no greater crime than being fake, so you might as well rep where you're from with pride. Did anybody on this list surprise you? Did we forget anyone? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you leave, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe.